Inspires Me, a show about wellness, amazing people, and information to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. She's a national television shopping host, speaker, author, personal trainer, mom, an amazing superwoman who doesn't let fear get in the way of her goals. We'll be discussing her upcoming book and how it can help you transform your life. Friends, I'm excited to introduce Dionne Ross to the Mike Inspires Me show.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. You know, I believe that everybody's multifaceted. We have different things that we pursue in life. And fortunately for me, I would, pursue a certain path, but always kind of hold on to that. There was a time in my life where I did nothing but fitness and to do personal training and teach fitness. And so even though I don't do that full time, I still keep a little bit of that. I still keep that in my life. So that's kind of what I talk about in my book too.
That's great, because I imagine it's been central in your ability to be able to take other areas of your life into the next level. You know, it seems like taking care of your body and your health has to be the foundation of everything else you do.
You know, I was listening to another podcast today, and they were it was a Pat Flynn episode at Smart Passive Income, and his guest was talking about having self-integrity. When you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
We honor our commitments to other people, but we don't honor them to ourselves.
Right.
And so when you have these commitments that you place on yourself, that you won't say you're going to do something unless you're really going to do it. But what that does is it changes your entire life. And I think health and fitness is the same thing. When you have a level of integrity to your body, when you honor your body's needs, when you make time in your busy schedule to prepare a meal or to actually, go walk around the block, those are the same principles that you apply to other parts in your life.
Yep.
And you can apply that to overall success.
That's a great point. It's interesting. I've said similar things in terms of people coming out, like if they're going to do a commitment to, say, their health, that they tell people, and that helps them kind of stay accountable. Not only that, but also garner support with that. So it is important to keep it to yourself, but for those of us who struggle with that, you go out and you tell a few people, now you're even more committed and kind of leave yourself no way of getting,
well, I think too, like, that's why self awareness is so good. Oops, sorry. If you know that you are not the best with keeping your commitment to yourself, then there are things that you can do to set up ways that you can't fail. I mean, same thing when I wanted to write a book. I'm working with a coach, a wonderful coach. And I thought, well, I'm not going to tell anyone I'm writing a book until it's done. And then, and he's like, no, tell your family, tell your friends, because now they're going to be looking for it.
Yep.
So
that's funny you say that. That's as you know, I'm trying to write my own book, and that's part of the thing that I did myself. I did that, and I took on a co-author who's already a published author, and I knew that if I committed with her, now I'm really in it to do it. So you kind of leave yourself a fence where you say, okay, I can't get out of this.
Yeah. Well, I know me. I know how I handle things when I just keep things to myself.
Right.
So because of that, I am going to do what I need to do to hold myself accountable. It's just like, it's funny because as a personal trainer, I'm so glad I got my foundation in that, because there's the way that we treat our bodies. There's so many metaphors in life. I mean, the same thing in terms of like when it comes to accountability for health and fitness and wellness. When you're paying somebody, you're going to show up to the gym and actually work out with the trainer. That matters. If you are part of a community and they look for you when you're gone,
right,
that is another way to stay accountable. And again, yourself, if I say I'm going to do this and I operate on this little island, I'm probably not going to honor my commitments.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. This is great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit. So you're from Texas. You've grown up there your
I'm
whole
from
life?
Texas. I
Yes.
am. I'm very much Texas. Let me tell you how Texas I am. So I grew up in Austin, Texas. I went to the University of Texas.
Yeah.
I went to in Austin,
Yeah.
which same town I grew up in. And
Yeah.
anywho, went to Houston for graduate school. Went to U of H, University of Houston, and then I finished that and I applied everywhere all over the country because I vowed to move out of Texas.
Yeah.
And the only job I got
Good.
was in Texas, in Austin, 15 minutes from my mom and dad's house. So I'm back in Austin. I've been with the company ever since. It's a shopping channel. It's nationally televised. It's called Shop LC. And we had our start in jewelry.
Right.
So the owners of the company are actually a jewelry manufacturing company that's based in India. And what they wanted to do initially was come up with a way to go directly to the consumers. So the channel was built. It's a new model. It's a different model than the other shopping channels because you can actually get a whole lot more for your money because you're buying directly from the manufacturer.
Oh, wow.
So we've been in operation since 2007. I've been there since 2007. And so that's been wonderful. But again, I've also held on to my passions, which have been, teaching fitness classes and training clients on the side.
And now you've got other things. So I see that you've been doing public speaking, and that's an interest of mine. I've started to delve into. We talked a little bit. I just recently got certified in Toastmasters, and
congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a fantastic way to be able to get good practice in that. So what got you going off into that route, doing public speaking?
Well, again, and I think this just comes from fitness. I want to help people.
Right.
And I wanted to also, look around at things that I do well, after having been a shopping host for many years and essentially talking for a living, you really learn the art of talking, public speaking. Right. So I wanted to take that to another level and actually do things that I felt that directly help people. So talking about a number of topics. The John Maxwell certification has been wonderful because it's just been great, connecting with like-minded people. And there's a lot of great content that John Maxwell has produced over the years that I can now access and teach as a certified coach, which helps a lot of people and organizations too.
Yeah, and that life coaching aspect is really, it's an amazing path that people take because, people wouldn't think that life coaching would be something you could go out and teach about, but some simple principles can be taught to get people to think a little differently about life, think a little differently about health and their priorities, and make changes that can impact all areas of their life, their health, their fitness, their wealth, their relationships. And I've seen a few of those programs. I know the John Maxwell one is a fantastic one, very, very well respected in the industry. So that's great that you're able to do that. And
thank you.
Yeah. Wow.
And one thing about coaching that's very interesting is that a good coach does not necessarily have to be proficient in your field. So you don't necessarily, like if I wanted to coach someone who is a CEO in a tech space, I don't have to have, experience in that. A good coach is somebody that helps you arrive at answers on your own.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So it's not like somebody that, tells you what you need to do. They guide you as you navigate for yourself.
Get you to think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, even with myself too. I often think about that because in my journey and the health journey that I've been on, I've noticed that so many people have different ways that they approach their life and their health. And I can't tell any one person that my way is the right way. And so in the way I'm writing my book too, I don't tell people you should do this or you should do that. I tell people what I did, but I also explain to them and get people to think a little differently about what it was that worked for me and what got me to change my life. I think thinking differently, and we get stuck And that's, I think, what you, as a coach, you're really good at doing, is that you're able to kind of get people out of that stuck mentality. I think we're creatures of habit, and we say, you know, I've got to do things this way. And one day you just kind of sit back, and I think as a coach, you kind of go, well, why are you doing these things? Why are you doing it that
Yeah.
way? You don't have to
Yeah.
do these things, and you could
Right.
do something different.
Yeah.
But
That's essentially what my book is all about.
great segue. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. Settled
Yeah.
to Soaring. Amazing
Yes.
title too.
Thank you. Thank you. So my book, it's called Settled to Soaring, as you just said.
Yeah.
And the backbone of my book is based on a quote from Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
And he said that most people die at 25, but aren't buried till 75.
I love that.
I heard that quote, maybe a couple years ago, and it has stuck with me over the years. And it's true. We have a tendency as human beings to set our sights on something. And once we get to that destination, we settle and we don't move any further.
Yeah.
So my book is really kind of addressing not people who, nothing against young people or,
Right,
people
right.
that are just starting.
Right.
But my audience is people in their 30s, 40s, 50s who have reached a level of accomplishment, who might be in the dream job that they went to school for, might be doing some of the things that they said they wanted to do, but they've not challenged themselves since getting in that position.
Right.
So as a trainer, I used to work with different types of athletes. And I remember having a conversation with a particular person that ran marathons.
Mm-hmm.
And she was telling me, now I've never run a marathon. I'll tell you that. I'm not a distance runner. No, that's just not even something I just don't have a desire to do that. So not knocking it. It's awesome. It's just not for me. Anywho, I remember her saying, once I got to that 26, cross 26 miles, that 0.2 was the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And it was like I could barely take another step.
Yeah.
Now, physiologically, we know that if you can physically run 26 miles, you can run 28. You can, it's very possible. But we as human beings, when we set our sights on something, we get there and then we camp out and we're done. Mm. Now, again, that's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. That's how we're created. However, if you're not careful, you'll find yourself in a settled position, not learning, not growing, not doing anything of value. Yeah. And the reason why this is so important is because, and this is a basic premise of my book, is that growth is life, and life is growth. And when you are just existing and you're just going to work and coming home and watching your shows and, going to happy hour, and it's every week, every month, year after year, 5 years pass, 10 years pass, 20 years pass, that is no way to live. Yeah. And I want to, the personal trainer in me wants to shake people up and say, because you get one life, Mike. Yeah. One life. Yep. And it's, if you've graduated from school and you're working in your field and you like what you do, that is so wonderful. Yep. But there's also, for most of us, we're multifaceted. Yep. We might, have a job that, we do something 40 hours a week. We're in IT, but we also have this love or passion for photography. Right. And again, a lot of times when we get comfortable, we stop pursuing the things that are important to us. We stop asking questions. We stop growing. We stop learning. My son, I have a little one. He's almost 2. And it's just, he's such a sponge for anything, any new words, and, where's my nose? Where's my mouth? And, when I take him to the beach, the sand is amazing. Everything's amazing. And it's, you know, that's how it is when, you know, when you're little and you're gaining knowledge of the world. But the older we get, the less curious we become, the less hungry we are, the less we are asking more of life.
Right.
And I just don't think that's any way to live, personally. I think for me, I know that when I feel stagnant, I get really down.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to get depressed when I don't feel like I'm growing. I get easily irritated and easily agitated with things in life because I'm stagnant and I'm stuck.
Yep.
And I want to wake people up.
That's awesome. I love that. When I hear stuff like that, because going through a life transformation myself where I was existing and not living. Now, unfortunately for me, I went through a terrible experience of losing my father. That was my wake-up call.
So sorry.
Well, but you know something, it had a purpose, and I understand what the purpose was. And the purpose was to remind me, just as you're saying, that there are important things in life, and one of them is living, and one of them is growing. And that's what caused me to embark on a health journey, losing over 200 pounds. And that's what caused me now to do the things that I do. I never expected to be doing this stuff. It's just, but I love it because the way you said it, I mean, I think people miss out on that beauty, the beauty of life, the simplicity, the way you described your son that's the thing that we do take for granted, looking at the grains of sand. I love, even myself now, I find myself, I like to just pick it and say, this one grain of sand, I'm probably the only person that's ever looked at this one grain of sand in the world, you know, and you think about those things and it's like, wow, that's such a simple thing. But, you know, at the age your son's at now, everything's amazing. As we get jaded, as we get older, as we think we know everything, we really don't. And we learn less and we get settled. So,
you get settled. And, you know, and it's funny because we now have another distractor in our lives. And it's not a bad thing. It's just something that you have to be aware of. And that's the onset of social media.
Yeah.
And I talk about this in my book. And the way I describe social media is that it can be what I call the great diluter. Yeah. It has the ability to dilute your life and make your life less potent. In that, most distractions that people experience, for example, going out to dinner with friends, or, you know, you have to stop one activity in order to do that. For example, if I want to watch a television show, I can't be at work watching a television show. Right. But what I can do is be on my phone looking at social media, and I call myself working. Right. I can call myself spending time with my phone, but I'm really, half my attention is on Instagram. Yeah. And so what you're doing is you're making your life less potent. And the reason I talk about this is because a lot of people that have full-time jobs say, I have a full-time job, I'm stretched, I can't, you know, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the time to pursue, you know, a business that I've always wanted to, or I don't have the time to take a course, or I don't have the time to study for my master's degree. And what I'm going to ask first is, how much time do you actually spend on social media? Yeah. And really, and because again, to me, it's the most dangerous distractor, because you have the ability to tell yourself you're doing one thing when you're actually doing another. You can tell yourself, oh, I'm spending time with my son, we're at the park, but my face is buried in my phone. Yeah. So anytime you feel like you don't have the time, you have to trim the fat. Yeah. There are a lot of distractors in our lives that keep us from accomplishing greatness, because we're doing a whole bunch of stuff that's just not necessary, or we're doing a whole bunch of stuff that's distracting. Yeah. And it's a shame, you know.
I've heard the same, the same thing, that don't have the time when it comes to exercise. I've heard that don't have the time when it comes to meal prep, because that's one of the things that I had to learn to do is meal prep for myself. And then you start asking these other questions
Yeah.
about, what do? You have the time for these other things.
Right.
And,
So, my personal training background kicks in, because I
yeah.
remember when I would get clients saying, I've gained. So they start working with me, and, they weigh in and they've gained 5 pounds, and they're like, I don't know. And, I know they're working out there, because at least they're working out with me. I mean, I know that for sure. And then I ask what they're eating, and they say, oh, I don't eat that bad. Oh, I may have a candy bar or soda every now and again. And what I actually have them do is write out everything that they're eating, every little thing that comes in your mouth. What are you eating? Seriously.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be done. And to me, it's an audit. It's a big fat audit. You are auditing what you eat in the same way, but when it comes to your time, how much time do you spend doing things? There was a study, gosh, I don't remember the number, but I think it was saying the average American, oh gosh, it was like 9 hours. It was something just astronomical. And you think, where do people get the time? But again, they're also on their phone at work. They make the time.
Yeah.
So, again, auditing, because it comes down to priorities.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Right.
So if you have a full-time job and have a full-time life, and you have a family, but you also have a dream, you have to be willing to trim the fat. And you have to realistically audit, where in my life am I investing energy and time to things that aren't profiting where I want to go.
Well, and you're forcing awareness too. It's kind of the same thing like when you track food. I tell people, one of the principles I'm writing in my book is talking about the use of journaling for food, because it's almost exactly the same thing like with social media. You kind of lose those bits and awareness. You lose your reality of how much you're really on there. And it's the same thing with mindless eating and portion distortion and with all sorts of things. When I tracked everything that I ate, it was shocking. I'm like, whoa. And then I found out things too. It's like, oh, NyQuil's got 90 calories. Okay, that's interesting. But little things add up when it comes to food. Little things add up when it comes to time wasters too. You're absolutely right. I mean, we're so used to this multitasking sort of thing. And let's not even get started with doing that while we're driving, but
right, exactly.
So so you've got this is interesting. I'm hearing a lot of parallels, and it sounds like a lot of the same types of things. You've got a very holistic approach in your book, where you're talking about not only with health, but overall in life, accomplishing certain types of goals, whether it's financial success or career success, just life success in terms of living a life as opposed to existing. These are really interesting concepts, and I think they are getting lost in today's modern world. We're losing ourselves into this interest.
Well, life is more than collecting a check. It is. And the sooner you know that, the happier you'll become. Now, let me also say this. A lot of people that I've seen and helped along the way actually have started making more money, actually have started to be able to have a lucrative business, because they are trimming the fat and they are pursuing things that are important to them, instead of, watching an entire season of Game of Thrones, for.
I've never seen that, by the way.
I've not seen it either, but.
All right.
Okay. And you know what? I'm scared to watch that show because I know me.
Yeah.
I know that I love good shows.
Binge. Yeah, me too.
I do. And I am that girl. And I'm not, so that's why I'm not like preaching at people, like talking down on them. I know that certain things, if I start it, I'm going to finish it. And because I've never watched it and I can watch all of it at my own pace, I'd probably have to stop my life for a week just so I can watch Game of Thrones. I don't have time for that. I don't.
You got time for living, though. Yeah.
When, like, maybe when I'm on vacation, I'll start it or something.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, s- I saw a little critter roaming around on the floor behind you there. Little,
Oh yeah, that's my little dog.
yeah.
Where did he go? Yeah, my little one. I had he's at a babysitter, so otherwise it would not be quiet here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we've talked about in the book, you so you've got a health aspect, you've got, and there's a financial aspect. You talk a little bit in there as well, or probably a lot, but
Mhm.
why don't we talk a little bit
Well,
about that?
sure. So you can get a lot done. So, for example, if you get home at 5 o'clock, you spend maybe you go to the gym, you get home at 6:30, you spend time with the family. 2 hours of focused work a day, you can get far. Or if it's a course that you're taking, you can
Right.
get far. One of the things I also do, and this is just a little side note, I call my car my rolling university. So whenever I get in my car, because I have to sit there anyway,
Yep.
I may as well be learning something.
Yep.
So I am listening to audiobooks,
Yep.
on podcasts, listening to lectures on YouTube, because that's time
Mm-hmm.
that I would be just not doing anything. So there's that. So, but yeah, you can find areas in your life where you can truly, truly get stuff done. And it doesn't necessarily have to take away from time with your family or
Right.
time with time away from things. But what it does require is trimming the fat.
Yeah. So now I'm going to get into, because this is going to help me personally too, because we're going to talk about this. You must have used this type of principle in writing your book. And I tell you for myself, that's one of the things where I struggled, is just like, I couldn't even get myself to just sit down and do it for 15 minutes a day, just to sit down. And, I get home and I'm tired. And then I had to kind of look at it differently. I had to sit down and say, okay, this is, because what ends up happening is I get distracted. I get on here, how it is, right? And
Yeah.
I'll next thing you know, I'm popping. Well, let me just check real quick on Facebook, see what's going on, and then down this rabbit hole. And I'm curious for yourself, how did you manage to do this? How did you manage to Let's be real. I mean,
I wish I could be some shining example.
no, I'm not. It is.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I say the same thing about health too. I mean,
yeah. It's it's been a struggle. There have been many days where I get home from work and in my mind all day I'm like, gotta finish chapter 7, gotta get done today. And then by the time I get the baby settled and finally put him to sleep and at bath time and then I get to chapter 7. Well, no, actually, no, I don't get to chapter 7 at all. I just go to sleep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, that's what I'm curious about. That's the thing. Why I wanted you on here is this balance thing. Because that's what I'm really curious about is you've got all these things that you're doing, amazing things, and somehow you managed to write a book too, and somehow you managed to raise this beautiful son of yours. I've seen the pictures of him too. He is just scrumptious. Oh my God.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
And and then I'm admiring what you did, and I'm glad to hear. Well, I shouldn't say glad. It feels good to know that it is a struggle, because I'm feeling
it's a struggle. It's a struggle. There's two ways I want to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, okay, let me do this and then I'll do other things. So I do talk a lot in my book about times and seasons. In that certain times in your life they may not necessarily be times to do certain things. And understanding that, but also that to me is a slippery slope, because a lot of people let themselves off the hook prematurely. But so again, this is after you've really realistically audited what you can handle and what you can't. And sometimes certain things may just have to wait a couple years which is fine.
Okay.
Because again, you're not racing anybody but yourself. So
True.
there's that. And oh gosh, okay, and I'm gonna get to my other principle, the
Okay.
said principle I'll talk about in
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah.
But and on another podcast, I heard a gentleman talk about a way that he viewed his life. And he viewed his life in a series of gardens. So he said, I don't remember exactly how many gardens it was. I think it was like 7. But most people have about 7 different gardens in their life. So there's like the relationship or love garden, the parenting garden, the job garden, the passion garden. These are all different things in our lives. At any given time in our life, you can really only tend to 2 to 3 gardens effectively at once. Sometimes certain gardens may have to kind of take a back seat and maintain themselves for a little bit. Other gardens require constant attention, like the parenting garden. So understanding, like if you are heavily in that parenting garden and you also have a really you might have, an ailing parent or something like that.
Right.
That might not be the time to start a business because you have those priorities at the moment. But understanding that, delay is not denial. You can still pursue things in the right time because you can only tend to so many things at once. So understanding that's number 1. But number 2, on the opposite end, there is a principle in exercise science that I think is very, very interesting because it explains our bodies in a certain way, but I think it's also metaphorical for how we live as human beings.
Right.
And the principle is called the SAID principle. And the SAID principle, that's an acronym and it's SAID, and that's specific adaptation to imposed demands. Specific adaptation to imposed demands. And basically what that means is that your body is so sophisticated that it has the ability to, if there's a challenge that's presented to you, your brain goes into motion and recruits every muscle that's necessary. It recruits all the things that need to be recruited so that you can execute that task. And an extreme example of this, and we talked about this before, Mike, is about we hear of these heroic stories of these mothers that, there's a baby pinned under the car. And the mother jumps out and she's only 120 pounds. But she somehow lifts the car and frees the baby. Yeah. And that's because in that moment, you have the ability to meet the demand. Yeah. And so life has a way of setting the bar and you always rise to meet that bar. You know what I'm saying? So if you tell yourself, I only have the bandwidth to work my full-time job, that's all you're ever going to do. If you tell yourself, no, I can work my full-time job and I can also pursue my passion, you have the ability to recruit whatever is necessary to actually meet that particular bar. And it's the same thing in exercise science. If you really, 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 that's why, as a personal trainer, you work with a person at a particular level, and then you keep raising that bar. You keep raising it, and they push themselves to meet that bar. And so, again, same thing in life. But the problem is, Mike, is that we ourselves set our own bars so low. Yep. We just do. It's path of least resistance. And, and again, there'd be nothing wrong with that if we truly be satisfied there. If you can honestly say, I'm good I'm good working my job and not growing and not pursuing any of my passions, I'm fine with that. If you honestly can say that, then, mazel tov, keep it up. Right. Most people want more.
Well, yeah, it's like you said, you find yourself feeling unsettled and depressed when you're not at that point where you feel like you're on a path to growing. And if I'm quoting you right. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that that's the root of sometimes of their unhappiness, or maybe we don't even realize that we are. I think even back when I was not living, I didn't realize it. I didn't know back then that I was just existing. I just thought that's the way it was, and it's as good as it gets.
Right.
And I didn't realize that there were other opportunities, or that I was capable of doing things that, I dreamed of.
Yeah. Well, and what a shame.
Right.
What a shame.
Missing out on life.
What a shame. Yes. What a shame it is to the one shot you have, the one shot that you have on this planet to make your mark. If you think about, I work in gemstones. I sell jewelry. So I learn a lot about gemstones, and, stuff is millions and billions of years old. So when you think about how old the earth is, and the human life expectancy, life is a vapor. Like it's a little flicker. And if you think about how valuable and precious that is, what a shame it is to consciously waste it.
Yeah.
Consciously know that there's better out there, know that there's more out there, and you do nothing about it.
Yeah.
That's scary to me.
Undersell yourself too. And
Yes.
I think that's where when I started to think about my life, who we're doing an interview with here. But it's interesting. I find a lot of these parallels here in what you're talking about, because I found myself thinking about, how do I want to live the rest of my life with whatever time I got? I don't know how much time I have. I really don't. But I'm going to spend whatever it is I have enjoying, and whatever that means, and I'm still figuring out all of what it means, but I've done things already in the past few years that I never thought I'd be on television like I was just a few weeks ago for the third time. I never thought I'd be, joining the National Fitness Hall of Fame, getting certified to public. I hated attention, I hated being, and so to your point, you're right. I'm living it now, and I can attest to everything you're saying. You're absolutely right. There's a point where we got to question, is this really all there is for me?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Not only questioning that, but being brave enough to put yourself in the arena. For me, writing the book, having my business, that's fine and good. If, it'd be great to, sell a ton of books and become a bestseller, But for me, my fuel, if you will, is knowing it's the journey.
Yeah.
And it's knowing that I'm being true to my passion.
Yeah.
I go to bed at night. I may be tired. I may not have finished everything on my to-do list. I may have fallen asleep at my computer, but at least I'm living my life true to myself. And I'm not a slave to anybody. I'm not a slave to my job. I am able to have, a full-time job that's wonderful, and I'm able to also pursue my entrepreneurial pursuits, and but I also created that life for myself.
Yes.
And that's another thing. So a lot of people are like, well, that's all, that's great for you, fine, good. My job won't let me do that. You have to create your reality.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to set parameters.
I absolutely agree. Everything that I did too, the same thing. This is, or I was going to wear my Hike with Mike shirt too. I had on too. All of this that I created, all this, it was just, and sometimes you do things and okay, maybe it doesn't go over so well, or maybe you find that it didn't fit. Okay. Yeah. Try something else. Don't let it discourage you. But like you're saying, I love that you're saying that, being true to yourself. I think this book, much like the book I'm trying to write too, yes, it'd be nice to be the best New York Times. And I truly hope you are. It sounds like you're definitely on the right path here with some great information. Your genuineness is definitely there. And the information that I'm hearing so far is definitely I can attest to myself. Can't wait to see this, by the way. But the fact that one person may read this and may change their life and may write to you, or maybe you'll never know. And that is amazing to me.
That's,
that you can,
for me, that's worth it.
yeah.
If I can make a difference for one person, it's worth it for me.
Yeah. I mean, as nice as it is to be successful in career and money and all these other things, to have an impact, that someday, somebody, Dionne, she was an amazing person. She had a genuine interest in helping people, but not only that, a wisdom that was helping me kind of get beyond the place where I was stuck. Mm-hmm. Because isn't that really, I mean, you think about that's what a lot of people, they're stuck. They're settled.
Yeah.
They're settled.
And you know what? I think too, that people who are most susceptible to be, okay. So, those of us that go to college or you start your trade and you just get in your routine quick. You might have experienced success early. They're the ones that I find to be the first to be stagnant, because you're comfortable. When you don't have enough money to pay your bills, you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
And so you're hungry and you're moving and you're doing, you're doing what is necessary. You're getting up early and staying up late. When you were young and you wanted to get your degree so you could get a job, again, you were hungry, you needed money, but now that you have money and a stable life, are you still growing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are people listening out there?
You know what? I hope so. I hope that people realize, I hear different people that talk about, near-death experiences. I watched this incredible story. It was one of those Facebook videos, and this young woman was dying of a rare form of cancer. And so it was kind of documenting her final year of life. And she had like a bucket list of things, and she was able to do that last year, and that was beautiful, and it was such a touching story. But I think about the fact that why is it that we wait until why do we wait to actually get serious about our bucket list? It's just like, for example, I live in my house. I've been living in my house for 13 years. Yeah. I want to now sell my house. Yep. So there's a ton of improvements that I could have actually been doing and living in and enjoying, but I'm doing it now. Yep. I'm getting new tile, Yep. I could have had new tile. Me and my son could have been enjoying the tile. Now another family's going to enjoy the tile, and another family's going to, enjoy a lot of the other upgrades that I'm doing in my house. But why is it that it's not until something is over that we all of a sudden care about investing in it? And what a shame.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going through something in my house too. I know that's a whole other story.
Yeah. But you ask yourself, because as I'm getting my tile, then I'm like, gosh, because I've been needing tile for years. Yeah. And it's like, wow.
Maybe it wasn't a priority at the time. I don't know.
And you're right. It wasn't a priority, but it's a priority now.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it would have been nice, right? Yeah.
It would have been nice. Yeah. I mean, but we'll get to enjoy it for a month or whatever, But it's, I mean, why do we live life that way?
That's true. And hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? You kind of look back and you say, "Yeah, I could and I should have." And I guess you have your reasons at the moment,
but why do we look at things? Why do we look at things in our life that need to change or that could get better? And it's not until something catastrophic happens or we get really bad news that we get serious about living.
Why did I wait until I was 44 years old, 400+ pounds, to finally start taking care of my health? Why did I wait all that? Why did it take my father's death to remind me that you got one life and
Right.
you got to take this chance now?
Right.
Because each day, I remember I was talking to my brother. I got my little, I'm a big Popeye fan, and I kept showing him my brother this clock, and I kept saying, the clock's ticking, and how much time are you going to spend miserable? And and I think sometimes we don't know we're miserable, or we tell ourselves that we're not. But every minute that you spend miserable is a waste. It is an absolute waste. There's going to be times that things are going to happen, but if there are things you can do to improve your life, I think when people end up with that toxicity in their minds, it's hard to dig yourself out. I mean, I know a lot of people personally who are on that other side who tell me it's all I can do to just get through my day.
Yeah.
And I think that's another key where I'm kind of struggling is, what do you say to a person like that when I tell them I'm living this fulfilled life now that I take care of my health and I take care of myself, and things are going, I mean, they're not perfect, trust me. I've got all kinds of uphill battles here, but I tell you what, it's 100 times better than it was. And like you're saying, there are things you can do to improve. Why is it they don't? I mean, the one person I know in particular, I mean, he just basically stays because he feels that he can't take that much more. And I don't know what it's going to take for him. Like you're saying, maybe your book, I don't know, but to say to himself, something, maybe I can take on. I have a relative that's close to me. He'll probably end up seeing this at some point, who, he struggles with his weight, and he has me, and can't seem to get beyond, that next step.
Well,
and,
you can't want something more for someone than they want for themselves, first of all.
That's true. I agree.
Second,
and I can't do it.
Right. You can't. But most importantly, especially for the person that's saying, there's no way that I could, I'm so miserable and my life is like this. And number one, you have to take full responsibility for your whole life.
Yeah.
Your whole life.
Oh, yeah.
There are things that happen to you, but at the end of the day, it's still your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a talk that I give high school students, and it's called Fault versus Responsibility. Not everything is your fault, but it's your responsibility. And I give this analogy or scenario of, imagine your parents giving you a brand new car, and it's a beautiful car, and I have them visualize what color. You take your friends on a joyride. One of your friends gets sick and throws up in the back seat. They cannot, you got to rush them home, they're not well. Do you A, let it sit in your car and wait for them to clean it up? Or do you B, figure out how you're going to clean it up because it's still your car? And they always say, I hate the fact that they threw up in my car or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's still my car. And life is the same way. Your life is your life is your life is your life. There may be people that cheat you, that hurt you, that do things to you, but at the end of the day, it's still the one life that you get to live. So what steps are you going to take to make it right? And that is, again, that's the difference between fault and responsibility. It may not be your fault, but at the end of the day, it's still your responsibility. And so I give that talk to high school students just to help them understand that people who are successful, they take full responsibility. There may be traffic, for example. There may be, like tonight, I had to take my son to the babysitter, and it started pouring down rain, and I was afraid, and the traffic was horrible. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get home in time for the interview, and I got home with plenty of time. Thank you, Jesus. But if I would not have gotten back in time, it would not have been okay for me to say, oh, but there was traffic and it's a storm outside, so da-da-da-da-da. Like, again, it may not be my fault, but it's still my responsibility. And there's a difference between the two. But if you want to be successful in your life, you have to take full responsibility for your life. So anyway, my phone actually just died. So I'm going to get back on this Zoom call. But thank you for watching this interview. Mike is amazing. And I will give you the link once he uploads the podcast. I will give you the link so that you have that. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Have an awesome, beautiful night.
And thank you again, Dionne, for being on the Mike Inspires Me show. Friends, check out Dionne Ross on Facebook so you can keep up with her latest inspirational posts and her upcoming book, To Soaring, coming out at the end of this year. Very exciting. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mike Inspires Me. Stay tuned for more exciting shows to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. Stay awesome.